This is the L28 motor out of a 280Z that I'm rebuilding to put in my 240Z. In the last video, part 1, I did the disassembly. I've got all the parts cleaned up, so I'm getting ready to start putting them back together. First thing I've got to do to this block is hone the cylinders. Fortunately, there's no ridge on here whatsoever, so I think lightly honing them will clean them up really good. This block had been rebuilt previously and was bored 30 over. I've got this type of a hone that I'll be using. I've got the adjusting screw backed all the way out, so it's kind of on the lightest setting. I'll be using a variable speed drill motor so I can control that. I'll be just running at a slow speed, going up and down in the cylinders, trying to achieve a 45-degree crosshatch pattern, and I'll want it to clean up from top to bottom in the cylinder. I've got a mixture of some solvent and oil here, and so I'm just going to coat my stones. Go around the inside of the block, each cylinder. And I already ran this thing, the hone, down to the bottom of the cylinder, and when the top of this is kind of flush with the top of the block, while my stones are at the bottom of the cylinder, I've got about 1 inch additional that I can go down before I hit the stones onto the crankshaft journal. So I got to be careful not to go down any farther than that, or I'll be breaking a stone. Looking good. All right, that one cleaned up pretty nice, I think. Looks really good in there. So now I'll get the other 6 done, and then I will rinse this block off with some soap and water real good. I decided to go ahead and get brand new pistons for it. The other ones probably could have used. They had a little wear up and down the skirts here. But I found this set of 30 thousandths over pistons with the rings. So I decided to just go ahead and get new ones. Here's my connecting rods. They're all cleaned up. So now I've just got to get the pistons pressed onto the rods. Okay, I'm getting ready to put the rings on the pistons, but before I do that, I'm going to put them in the bore here and push them down a little bit with a piston so that they're, make sure that they're square. And measure the end gap. It's supposed to be between 9 and 15. So I can see it has some gap. I'm going to take 15 thousandths. Okay, that doesn't fit. I'm going to get a little smaller. There's a 13. And that tries to start, but it won't go all the way through. Here's a 12. Okay, and that gets snug right up against the cylinder. So about 12 thousandths, maybe here, in gap on that one. So that's good. It's a good idea to check these just to make sure that you have the right size rings for your cylinders. I think I'm ready to start assembling. Everything's nice and clean. Got my crankshaft here, it's nice and clean. There's the main bearing caps right there. I've got some assembly lube, got new bearings, rod bearings, my torque wrench, torque specs. The bearings. I've got thrust bearing here, which goes right in the middle. And you see one of them has a hole in it, none on the other side. The hole goes, matches up with this hole in the block because that's where the oil is going to come through to feed the bearing, the crankshaft. And it's got a little key right here that locks into that key. There's only one way it's going to go in there. So this is just some assembly lube made specifically for rebuilding engines. Try and set it down in there very carefully. Okay, everything went together nice. Rotates real nice. I'm just going back over one last time to double check. Make sure I got everything torqued properly. Ready to put the pistons in now. So I'm just going to start at the front here, go down. So first thing I'll do is bring this #1 journal right down to the bottom of the stroke there. The rods are numbered 1, 1. Got to make sure you get the same correct cap on each rod. The numbers got to match up here. And then you also got to make sure, like we were talking about, this notch goes to the front. So this is the front of the engine. It'll come in there just like that. And we got bearings similar to the main bearings. And they're all the same. They all have a little hole in them. That hole matches up with the hole in the rod. And then the keeper's right there. So there's only really one way they're going to go in there. Just like that. And then this goes in here just like that. Okay, I've got these little rubber plastic boots. You saw these bolts fall out. These boots will do two things. They'll hold the bolts in place. And they'll keep from nicking the crankshaft with the bolts when I push them in there. Okay, now I'm going to put a squirt in the cylinder, wrap it around. This will go in here like this. This is kind of a funky looking little ring compressor, but seems to work okay. You can adjust it to the different size pistons. Tighten this down to compress them in there real good. Okay, now I just gotta knock it on in there, and at the same time kind of guide that over the journal. Okay, pull these off. Make sure my keeper's on the same side as that keeper. Got a little side play there. Rotates nice and free. Ready for number 2. Okay, that's the last one. I'm going to go back and double check the torque on all of them. I always like to double check everything. Okay, time to put the head on now. I just wipe this surface down real good with some degreaser. Make sure there's no oil or anything present on there. I've got the number 1 piston at top dead center, and I've established where that was and have it exactly at top dead center. And the way I did that, I put a strap across here. Now this piston actually on the top dead center, it protrudes above the block just a little bit, about 15 thousandths. So apparently this block has been milled to clean it up in the past at some point. So what I did is I bolted a strap across here. I put a degree wheel on the front of the crankshaft right here like this. And then I bolted this little wire pointer on here to point right at the degree wheel. I rotated the engine around to where the piston came up and bottomed out on the strap. I made note of my reading on the degree wheel. Then I went in the opposite direction and brought the piston back up to where it bottomed out. Made a note of the reading on my degree wheel. So halfway between those 2 readings would be exactly top dead center. So I took the strap off and I rotated the crankshaft just a couple of degrees that it was off and got it exactly on top dead center. So then I put my timing cover on here. It's got little dowel pins coming out of the block that locate it. If I can get it in the right position. Just like that. Then I put my harmonic balancer on here and I made a note of where the pointer was in relation to the marker on the harmonic balancer. Now this pointer is somewhat adjustable. You can loosen that bolt and rotate it a little bit, or it's just a piece of sheet metal. You can bend it around if you need to. Anyway, I got that adjusted where it's exactly right on the mark for top dead center. So after I get this engine put together and I'm timing it or adjusting the valves or whatever, I'll know exactly where top dead center is. So take that off. I'm not going to rotate the crankshaft. I'm going to leave this right on top dead center, because I'm going to need that on top dead center when I go to put my timing chain on here.